Welcome to the Stone Soup Recovery Podcast. Your host, Adam and Sean, will talk about their lives and living in recovery.
Hello and welcome to Stone Soup Recovery Podcast. My name is Adam.
And I'm Sean.
On tonight's episode, we're going to be talking about love. Love, love, love. The Beatles said it best. All you need is love. And we're going to be talking about self-love and what that means in recovery and what that looked like for us in active addiction. And I, for myself, starting out, I didn't know what self-love meant. I always heard that you have to love yourself before you can love someone else. You know, we've all heard that. And when I was actively drinking, I didn't have any love for myself. That's for sure. Drinking until it made me sick. Just drinking, period, was.
I saw you at one of your worst times of drinking, yeah. And I know just what you're talking about. It was like, you weren't showering and
No.
you didn't really care if you ate,
Yeah.
or if you did eat it, it was something cold from a can, yeah.
Lack of self-love, no self-love.
hmm
And
Yeah, you weren't taking care of yourself at all.
no. And even going back farther to the very beginning of my drinking, it was, I never realized how selfish drinking was until I got sober. And in that selfishness, there was no love.
Mhm.
It was all me, 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 me. Even when, I put it before my kids, I put it before, my friends and my family, and people would come along and they'd say, "Hey, Adam, I think you got a problem with drinking." And I would cut them out of my life.
Mhm.
That to me was self-preservation. Just I didn't understand it at the time.
Mhm.
I've had a lot of problems in just basic trying to understand people. When I didn't have self-love, I had problems in relationships with friends and with family, and I'd get into arguments with people, and it was usually something that I perceived was a slight, but in truth, it was me.
Mhm.
It was me. And it all comes down to, if I would have loved them better, would they still be in my life? And I think about that. If I would have been able to, and I'm not playing the what if game, but
Mhm.
in my brain, it still thinks, hey, what if I would have done this differently or done that differently?
Mhm.
You know,
I think we do that with everything, though.
yeah,
You always second guess yourself and, think back on things. What if I would have done it this way? Or what if I would have, or I wouldn't have done it this way?
well, you don't know what you don't know, I suppose.
hmm
And I didn't know what it meant to love myself.
Yeah, you said that the people that were around you that were coming to you and saying, "Hey, I think you've got a drinking problem," and you were cutting them out. Those were probably the ones that did actually love you and were caring about you.
Yes.
hmm
Yes, I did have some good people in my life, and I think God sent them along the way, and I sent them the other way,
hmm
and I still don't really know how to feel about that today, but I know if I would have been able to have just an ounce of self-love, things would have been just a little bit different.
hmm
I wouldn't have drank. I wouldn't have done the things that I did. Um, but today in recovery, it looks a lot different for me. I have self-love today. I take care of myself. We talk, we communicate.
hmm
I sometimes think, how much I love my children and I love you, and I think if I never had self-love in recovery, I wouldn't have the love that I receive from the family and the people around me.
hmm
And that's huge. That's gigantic,
Yeah.
you know. Um And like we were saying earlier, my situation with alcoholism was a little bit differently than with yours.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you had a long time under your belt.
Yeah.
I don't know how many years you drank, but I know that it was the majority of your adult life.
Yes.
And for me, it really didn't start until, I had the gastric bypass, which I've told you about. And then that was in 2008. And then it was, forward a few more years. And then I had a lot of issues in my life. Like I went through a divorce. I became an empty nester. My mom got sick. I had to leave my house and go to her house and take care of her, which I loved. I loved my mom. But it was a lot of sacrifices and a lot of change at once. And so that's what led me to drink heavier. And then when my mom passed, that's when I just went overboard. I didn't care anymore.
When you stopped caring, you had no self-love.
Um, I wouldn't say that I didn't have self-love, but I was just so angry and sad and hurt and, you know, that it just didn't matter. It didn't matter.
Mhm.
I could love myself all I wanted. I took care of I still showered and stuff,
Mhm.
but, uh, you know, I was even going to the doctor and, things like that. But, yeah, it changed though. She passed away and I, did that for a couple of years and then I started to get sick from it. That's when the doctor called and said, "Hey, your liver function is low and your kidneys are failing and we need to see you in here for an ultrasound." And I was like, "Oh, wow. Well, this is getting serious now."
Yeah.
So now comes the self-love. I could either choose the road of, well, I don't care about myself and I'm going to continue to drink anyways, or I can choose the road that says, I do love myself and I do want to be around and I need to get it in gear. So
And
that's when I decided that it was time for me to make a change.
that's the road of recovery.
Hmm.
It truly is. And I know for me that in the past, I didn't have that. I didn't have any of that, but I kind of identify with you in the fact where I was angry over my mother's passing too,
Hmm.
you know. So that just gave me another, reason in my mind to drink, you know. But I know that through recovery, I don't have to drink today because I have self-love today.
Hmm.
And I care about what happens in my world. There was once upon a time I didn't care about what happened. The only thing I cared about is where I was going to sleep and where I was going to get my next drink.
Yeah.
And that was my life. And I lived that way without, again, any self-love. I know that on the other side here in recovery, that the love that I receive from my friends and family, it sustains me.
Hmm.
It does. And I never thought in a million years that I would have a life today. I never thought through recovery that I would have my children in my life in the way that they are.
Hmm.
And so there's been a lot of rewards and a lot of blessings. But it started with putting down that drink. It started with the hard decision of, as I've explained before, talking to the pastor.
Hmm.
I remember looking at him and telling him, Pastor, no matter how hard I try, I just can't stop drinking.
Hmm.
And in that moment, I think was the first time when I said that, it was the first time in a long time that I showed myself any ounce of self-love. That was an act of self-love, talking to the pastor and just being honest and coming to a point to where I didn't have anything left in me. I was done struggling. I was done with the fight. I was just done. I had been mangled.
Hmm.
And I think about that and I think about that moment. And I think that it's in that moment that everything changed for me.
Hmm.
Everything changed for me. it was later on when I got baptized,
Mm-hmm.
that I was able to let go of a lot of that pain and a lot of the hurt and a lot of the anger that I held. That was a big thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was like you. I was pretty angry. I
Mm-hmm.
was angry at God and angry at the world and mad at myself for not being there. And it took self-love to pull me out of that. And it took the love of others to
Mm-hmm.
pull me out of that.
And rehabilitation, going to rehab and working the program and working the stops at AA and, having a sponsor and having a safe place to live and all those things,
All those
all helped you.
things.
Those were your tools.
All those things. It's a
Mhm.
good point. Those are all residual effects of self-love,
Right.
and we have that today. Both you and I do.
Mhm.
And
I personally never went to rehab or.
no, I had though.
Mhm.
I've been to rehab. I've been to rehab twice,
Mhm.
and it took what it took to get me to where I'm at. But it took what it took,
Mhm.
and it's because I started to love myself, and when I did, I felt pride and I felt dignity again. And it had been a long time since I felt those things. Those things were foreign to me,
Mhm.
you know. I felt pride in the fact that I was sober. I felt pride in the fact that my daughter would actually want to talk to me.
Mhm.
And I felt pride in my life. And then I became protective over it. And self-love just kind of builds upon itself. And it's like a snowball rolling down a hill.
Mhm.
And as you go, it just picks up the blessings and you don't even realize it.
Yeah, a lot of blessings that you receive, you don't realize it till later. Like
It-
you'll look back on something and be like, "Wow, I didn't see what it really was at the time, but now that I look back, it was a true blessing."
mhm. That's a good point. I've done that a lot in my life. Had moments where, it felt like a curse, but in reality, it was a blessing.
Mhm.
It goes back to the old unanswered prayer. Um, but I am thankful for recovery, and I'm thankful that I have love in my life from my family, from myself, from my friend, and I'm thankful that I'm sober today. I'm thankful that I'm sober.
Mhm.
So, but with that, I think we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah, I hope that everyone that's listening has a great Thanksgiving. The holidays are coming up and those are going to be some hard times for
They
people.
are.
So hopefully we'll be able to touch on those subjects a little bit, during the holidays. But yeah, we hope that you have a great Thanksgiving and you eat a lot of turkey and pumpkin pie. And we're gonna put up our tree, I think, on Friday.
That's
So
right.
that should be fun.
Get ready for Christmas. I love Christmas. It's my favorite time of year.
Me too. Especially now we have all the snow. So
Yeah, I think maybe we'll maybe do an extra podcast this weekend right before Thanksgiving. How's that sound?
we'll see.
We'll see. Maybe, guys.
You might be doing it solo.
Maybe. So, but anyway, this is Stone Soup Recovery Podcast. My name is Adam.
And I'm Sean.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.